Alright, I'm going to try to explain the differences between a mixer and a console. Mixer is a term that's often misused. A mixer is typically used for live sound and not studio production. A mixer is usually much cheaper and simpler compared to a console. Mixers usually don't include many bus options and really only need a main stereo output and maybe a few monitor mixes. There are two different types of mixers, both digital and analog. For analog mixers, every channel, bus, preamp, EQ, and all other components are composed of physical circuitry. They're extremely simple. For digital mixers, usually right after the preamp the signal is converted to digital data. It's essentially a sophisticated computer with a bunch of AD-DA converters with a specialized control surface attached. These are now the preferred device for live sound. They typically sound better than analog mixers, and you can also save and recall entire setups, which is very convenient. Now let's talk about consoles. These are what are used in studio production. They include many bus options and allow for complicated routing. The main types of consoles are split, inline, and hybrid setups. For split consoles, these are usually quite large because they have separate sections for the inputs and monitoring the outputs. These usually have the input section on the left, the monitoring section on the far right, and the mastering section in between. These are usually very expensive and can be a hassle to operate by yourself. If you're by the input section and want to make a change in the monitoring section, you'd have to physically slide down several feet to reach the faders. Back in the heyday of recording, studios often used 3 or more engineers to operate the console. By the late 70s, studio budgets began to shrink and they needed to reduce costs to stay profitable. They needed a better way for a single engineer to record a whole session. They eventually started using more inline consoles. With this inline format, a single engineer can easily run a whole session. Instead of having a new channel strip for each monitor track, a second fader is placed on each original channel. You can adjust the monitor fader without affecting the input channel's volume. All faders are in reach and it takes up less space in the studio. There is often a flip or reverse switch that allows you to use the main fader at the bottom of the channel to control the monitor volume. The most popular inline console is the SSL 4000 series. When it was released in the late 1970s, it started a revolution. With 32 or more channels featuring a top-notch EQ, a good compressor, and a great stereo bus compressor, it helped to create the sound of the 80s. The SSL 4000 allowed engineers to create more precise drum sounds than ever before. Billboard claims the 4000 has been used on 3/4 of all #1 hits since its release in the late 70s. Although the 4000 series is no longer in production, there are still some used ones floating around on the internet. You could get yourself one for only a few $100,000.